Happy Sunday, my friends. If you are watching this the day it goes live, isn't it a pleasure to be here? Because we are about to up those downs for Impact Slammiversary event. I'm going to say this too, just to draw a line under it and put it to bed. While I always appreciate and love the amount of people that get in touch and say, oh, Simon, you should do ups and downs for Impact every single week, I do need to sleep. I enjoy wrestling, very much so, but if I ups and downs all the time, eventually my brain will just melt and then I'll be dead. Thankfully, I am not dead just yet, and Impact just had one of their biggest events of the year. So we take this, the finger of power. How you doing? Doesn't respond. It's just a normal finger, and we give the good bits an up, and we give the bad bits a down. Let's up those downs. So even with all the talk of the former WWE guys coming into Impact on this evening, it was a completely different surprise that I don't think anybody saw coming. Because we all knew that the Rascals had issued an open challenge in a tag team match, and because we're so smart and we know everything that's going on, we were like, well, it's going to be Gallows and Anderson. They've even done a little bit of a video telling us they've signed with the company, and of all the people, it was the Motor City Machine Guns. That is getting up. Now, in many ways, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin were a part of this movement that went, right, you know how wrestling used to be? Well, let's do some of that, but also we'll do move, 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 flip, 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 and just go 100 miles per hour. And despite them debuting absolutely yonks ago, I don't think they've even lost a step. They even had an answer when Xavier and Wentz kind of went old school and kept cutting off the ring. They went out to the apron, which is the hardest part of the squared circle, and they just started punting them in the head. Because who needs skulls? From there, it was just a mixture of double team maneuvers and tennis. And while that may confuse you, like, why is Simon talking about tennis? Because in these type of matches, you do this. You go there, and you go there, and you go there, and you go there, because the action is just so fast. I can barely get up and bed in the morning, and these four were just running wild. It was a really smart way to kick off the pay-per-view, because if you're an old school fan, you were probably going crazy, and if you were tuned in out of interest, well, these four dudes, like I've just said, they can go. And as for the finish, my word. Because poor Xavier, not only was he kicked in the face about 122 times, but he also had that crazy move done to him. I think it's called like the ACAS or something. It's basically you get picked up and you get thrown towards the mat as if you're about to be murdered. It looked absolutely devastating. It means the Motor City Machine Guns did get a win. And what else could you have done here? Big return, big comeback, everybody excited. They'll have their chance, the other guys. But honestly, this got me very excited. I was comfortable, and I was happy I'd spent my dollars. And yes, I know, with a crowd, it would have been better still. That's it, I'm done. I've said the sentence. We can say that about every single wrestling show ever. Eventually, we just have to lay down and go, well, this is just the way. And then talk about switching it up, because we had Moose versus Tommy Dreamer. Now, look, this did stick out a little bit because it didn't really fit the flow of the rest of the show. That rhymed, somebody give me a prize. But I ain't gonna start taking shots at these two guys who decided to just go absolutely nuts. And therefore, mostly out of fear they may ever do this to me, is getting up. I suppose one of the reasons it worked so well is that if you just watch WWE all the time, and that's okay if you do, but you've been fascinated by this because you knew some former WWE guys may turn up, well, this was just like night and day, because World Wrestling Entertainment never does this kind of stuff anymore, or if they do, it's very rare. Because a garbage can early on was being used as if it was a hat, we had kendo sticks, Moose, who is not a small guy, was doing moonsaults off the top, and then the big twist, I suppose, the big reveal, is that we had damn thumbtacks. They just scare the crap out of me because it's not hard to figure out that it's going to hurt like hell, and I should have pointed out too, this was a old school rules match, which I think just meant back in the day, back in the old school, you could just do whatever the hell you wanted to do to the other guy, and nobody said boo to a goose. The poor goose. Given that there were thumbtacks too, it was just then tease, 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 tease. It was like playing a game of Jenga. And at one moment, Moose got Tommy Dreamer's head, and he was going to push his face into said thumbtacks. And because it is Dreamer, I was like, well, he's probably gonna do it. I mean, what else hasn't he done? That didn't happen. However, Tommy did get slammed into them. This allowed Moose to hit the spear, and he got the 1, 2, 3 and retained his fake world championship. Is that even a thing? He's got the old TNA world title. I don't even know how that works. And sure, yes, again, it was quite slow compared to everything else that was going on. But at one point, somebody had a weapon thrown at their head. I mean, what do you want me to do? Stand here and take a crap on that? You may want to, but I certainly shall not. It's about effort, people, and this was effort. Following this was the Knockouts Battle Royal to decide who would become the #1 contender for the big championship, and it was just a Royal Rumble. There's no point in me trying to explain it otherwise. It was a Royal Rumble, and it had 1 minute entrance breaks, whatever you want to call it. And look, fair play for Impact for not only having a big women's roster, but having multiple stories at the same time. And they did call on these throughout, which worked, but unfortunately, I don't think the structure or some of the decisions here was a good idea. Oh, it's a down. Right, I'll just run you through all the participants now because there's like loads of them and my brain ain't that good. But we had Tasha Steelz, we had Kylie Ray, we had Taya with Johnny Bravo, who I'll talk about in a second, Kimberly, Kira Hogan, Susie, Katie Forbes, Madison Rayne, Havoc, Alicia Edwards, Nevaeh, and Rosemary. And then, yeah, more Johnny Bravo. So the problem was twofold. One, there's a lot of people there, and because we only had 60-second intervals before somebody else came out, nobody was really able to tell their narrative without you sitting there and being a bit spinny-heady. And also, a large portion of this was taken up by Johnny Bravo, who really didn't need to be in this at all. I know it ties into stuff that they've done, but I just think if you are having a women's #1 contender match, just focus on the women's #1 contender match. And again, it's not really anybody's fault in the match. They're all very good here, but because we want to carry on this stuff with Taya and Rosemary, which has John right in the middle, he kept coming out dressed as other people. And I don't know, maybe you loved it, maybe you thought it was the best thing ever, but I'd rather this was like a proper contest with everybody vying to become the #1 contender. Because they were doing this too, Taya accidentally clocked Rosemary and that almost allowed Havoc to throw them out, but thankfully they didn't. And like I say, I just think if you have an important match where you may be about to climb the ladder, focus on the ladder. You don't need all the shenanigans and you don't need all the gaga. Anyway, the last two in were Kylie Ray and Taya, and this is when it transformed into a normal one-on-one match. And I enjoy it when battle royals have that little bit of a stipulation. I just think it's more fun. And we also doubled down on Ray here because she just blasted Taya with a destroyer, blasted her with a super kick, and she got the 1, 2, 3, and she is now your #1 contender. And I agree with that decision. And again, Impact's women's division is great and they have a crazy amount of depth. This was just a little bit of a shock to my senses. Still good. It was then time for our first surprise of the night, and it was Heath, don't call him Slater. I don't actually even think we called him Heath Miller here, which we certainly should do. He was just Heath. So he's gonna be a superstar. Like Prince. This rocked too because he has so much goodwill built up among the fans, myself included. I just want him to do so well and hopefully become the damn world champ. I mean it. He did have a free agent t-shirt on, and that was kind of the angle we were playing here. Has he actually signed with Impact Wrestling? And then that damn Rohit Raju came out and tried to beat him up, but Heath was like, I don't think so, you asshole, and he gave him a DDT. It just made me happy. Simple as that, it just made me happy. You go get him, Heath, and I'm gonna be in your corner every single step in the way, figuratively. Up. Chris Bay and Willie Mack were then fighting for the X Division title, and they are just two fabulous wrestling talents that have the world in front of them. And yes, again, it needed a crowd. I'm aware. People keep tweeting me. I know it needs fans. I've been watching wrestling a long time, but even still, up. We saw a draping neck breaker to the floor early on that set the bar about what we were going to do in this. And after Mack had gone for an exploder, Bay reversed it into the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. I was like, he must have been watching other wrestling programs. But unfortunately, it didn't work. And in fact, it pissed Willie Mack off because he did another exploder into the turnbuckle. And I was like, Chris Bay's neck is the real loser here. It's probably never going to work again. Bay then assholed it up massively by using the referee as a shield as Willie Mack was going for a 6-star. And then when he went for it again, Bay got out the way, so he clearly had that scouted. This caused so much madness, however, that the referee was baffled, and in that, Bay snuck round and he raked Willie Mack's eyes. He was then able to hit the final finesse, which not only means he won, but it means he has just become the X Division champion. We had damn title change. And yeah, sure, I probably would have taken a clean win here to really light a fire under this, but surely the feud isn't finished. And it was just wonderful. I mean it was wonderful. Matches like this are just modern day pro wrestling, wrapped up in a little package and then poof, explodes into your face and you're like, yeah. Also had another little backstage thing with Heath where he reunited with Rhino, and don't pretend you didn't want that, because you did, when Scott D'Amore arrived and said, look, you're a free agent, it says so on your t-shirt, and I'm gonna believe it, you're not supposed to be here because of the pandemic, you gotta go home. But it seems that Rhino must have friends in high place, because he was like, don't worry, dude, don't worry, man. Come Tuesday on the show, I'll make sure I sneak you in the doors. Just do it legally, guys. You're meant to be good people. It was then time for my best friend and also, of course, mortal enemy Sami Callihan to team with Ken Shamrock to take on the North for the tag team titles. And what you need to remember, if you do go out of your way to watch this after hearing me waffle on, is that Ken Shamrock is a man in his damn mid-50s. He makes absolutely no sense. Also, Sami Callihan's good. Don't say it, but he is. The North, obviously really good. Getting up. Now, I will say there was this bizarre bit towards the end where Ken seemed absolutely baffled. Sami Callihan had been accidentally knocked into him when he was putting on the ankle lock, but he was so perturbed by this, everybody else was fighting, and there was even some pinfalls, and Ken Shamrock was just in the corner going, nah man, this ain't for me. I don't know what that part was, but maybe I wasn't meant to. And look, Shamrock definitely didn't care for Sami Callihan's explanation. He was saying, it's not my fault, you buffoon. I got pushed into you. But this was the only part where I was scratching my head like, I think I got lost. There was this cool spot towards the end where both Shamrock and Alexander locked in their respective ankle locks and everyone else was just flopping around on the floor. And when they got out of that, these moves were just being busted out of nowhere. Sami Callihan just grabbed someone and gave him a power driver, because why the hell not? It was as if it was as normal as going to the shop, and Ken Shamrock continued this by going up to the top rope with Alexander and giving him a belly-to-belly suplex from there. He's in his 50s. The final blow came when Sami had just been beaten down on the outside and the North gave that double neutralizer thingy to Ken Shamrock as a damn good move, and they got the 1, 2, 3 and of course meant they retained their championships. I thought this worked really well too, and I enjoy this ongoing story between Sami Callihan and Ken Shamrock, who both love and hate each other. And also Ethan Page. In an empty arena, Ethan Page is even better than usual because I just enjoy his smack talk. And we do know our next program too, because straight after this, the Motor City Machine Guns were back and they were like, look boys, you may have been the best up to this point, but now you're second best because we are the greatest of all time and we're gonna kick your ass. Fair play, Impact, because what a good way to hook people to come and watch your show next week. We've got Heath Slater, don't call him Slater, we got these guys, and we're not even done. Following on from this as well, we had our Knockouts Championship match between Dorana Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace. This, my friends, was the show stealer. It was a highlight of the night, and it's getting it up. Even their lockup at the start was the most aggressive thing you have ever seen in your life. It's like both of them were like, I know how to win this really early. I'll just rip your head off, because as far as I'm aware, if somebody's head does come off their neck, I must be the victor, because how are you even going to be alive? You're not. You're dead. There was some dives early on to try and get you into the match, but really this was all about Purrazzo working on Grace's arm, because she just knows every single submission on the planet. Because honestly, the amount of arm moves that she was doing on the champion was as if she had gone to Chris Jericho and said, oh, can I borrow that list of 1,005 holds or whatever it was? And she had taken every single one. Every other second, there was something new. Grace is also just so good at being a powerhouse that she was laying in her strikes and hitting all these big maneuvers. You always thought there was a chance she may retain, and if she had hit the Grace driver, which she attempted, she certainly would have done. Unfortunately for her, well, she didn't. Instead, Purrazzo quite literally doubled down on her submissions because she gave her like a double arm bar, and Grace had to tap out. And who the hell saw that coming? And also, we got to call a spade a spade. Purrazzo is used better in Impact Wrestling. She's been there like 2 seconds than she was throughout her entire NXT run. She is your new champion. That is 2 new ones, and we already know we're getting a third because we got the main event. This was just so full on though, so give me more of this and make this a massive focus of the show. That's flipping great. And yeah, then it was our main event, which proves there was a good flow to this whole thing, because I don't think it stuttered at all. And straight away everyone was like, all right, who's the 4th man? Well, the secret was there was 5. Now this did divide some people, because when we did get to surprise shock who's it going to be, or entrant number 4, it turned out to be Rich Swann. Now this was kind of a little bit of a twist, because we had saw Rich earlier when he had come out backstage and done an interview, but of course he was still on crutches because we thought he was still injured. So yeah, you do have to admit that's equal parts awesome, but also a little bit disappointing, because we all had high hopes that it was going to be somebody else from here or somebody else from there, but really it's always about the destination sometimes. And here, when the show was over, there was so much to take away, I don't think we can get too mad. So the main event is getting an up, especially because from nowhere some brand new entrance music did start playing. I was like, wait a minute, it's supposed to be 4-way. Why is there 5? Well, I'm supposed a wizard in the sky had decided to watch this match as well, because the returning Eric Young surprised us all. Which means he's back, and if you're an old school fan of TNA, you know how damn good that is. And even if you just like WWE, isn't it nice to actually see him wrestle? Wasn't allowed to do that on Raw and SmackDown now, was he? I also think that it meant you kept guessing till the end of the pay-per-view because you knew you had to see Gallows and Anderson and you probably thought there was something else in the can, and there absolutely was. Madman Fulton, who had come out with Ace Austin, was kicked out of there early on because he kept getting involved, and this was good because the referee would have DQ'd him otherwise. But it didn't really affect Austin because he made it all the way through to the final two. Trey Miguel was out of there first as well after Eric Young did pile drive him. And after he also went to pile drive Rich Swann clearly, again, another one. He'd been out so long, he'd been watching all the wrestling, and he had realized, I tell you what the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment is, the surprise roll-up. So he reversed that, he did it, and if you couldn't believe it, Eric Young, who's only just back, his ass is out of here. Young was so mad though that he just ignored the fact he was supposed to leave. He got back in the ring and he absolutely destroyed Rich Swann's leg with a chair, and as we know, that's his injured damn limb. Sooner or later the officials did get him out of there, but you just knew it was the end of days, not that one, for Rich Swann, and even though he did fight valiantly, he did get out of there. Austin said goodbye. Because he slammed him with the fold, which means we were down to 2, and fair play to the commentary here for doing a really good job in catching you up, because in like 3 sentences, they had let you know, oh, Ace Austin and Eddie Edwards, the other guy in the match, they don't like each other. They'd basically be having a year-long feud, and Austin even got involved in Eddie's relationship. So now we know where we are. This also led a lot of people to believe that it was Ace's time to climb to the top. But that's not what happened, because it was indeed Eddie Edwards that got the victory here to become a 2-time world champion. And boy, how did that divide the audience. But really, I think this was building to what Impact wanted to do to end this show. And with that in mind, you couldn't have done anything else, because Madman Fulton was back out here as if he had just said, hey, there's $1 million, and he was beating up on Eddie Edwards. And then you were like, okay, well, someone's gonna make the save, and you already know who it was. It was, of course, The Undertaker. That wasn't The Undertaker, it was in the Impact Zone. It was Gallows and Anderson. There was some teasing that they were going to help the bad guys out, but they didn't. Anderson hit the stun gun and eventually hit the magic killer on everybody that was looking at them. That's not true, but they did smash it out. And they celebrated with Eddie Edwards. So maybe we're getting some kind of team here. I don't know, you tell me. And again, even if that had been it, I still would have been like, maybe we should have given Austin the title and actually shone the light on him and given him all this wahey wahoo. But we didn't, because we cut to a black screen, we cut to a video, and there, making his return to the Impact Zone, was EC3. For some reason, he took a glass and just threw it at a wall. That seemed somewhat unnecessary, but given that was the very last thing that you did see on Slammiversary, again, if if Impact wanted to make you watch the show next week, surely they did a damn good job, which is why it's okay that Eddie Edwards did become the champ. Sometimes you just gotta let the story play out, and if we're going to EC3 versus Eddie Edwards, maybe EC3 is coming back as a heel, and if he is, you can't do that match with Austin, because that would feel really weird. Overall though, I tell you, with all the surprises, and with all the anticipation, and with all the swerves, I really enjoyed this. I wasn't expecting to as much as I was. I woke up on a Sunday and I was greeted with love, and therefore it can have it up. Now don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's Slammiversary. I know some of you are mad, but you're always mad. It will be alright. I send you goodwill and good cheer. Like the video, share the video, hit that subscribe button, then head over to whatculture.com, read yourself some articles, follow What Culture on Twitter, What Culture WWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you very much for joining me, and amazingly, I'll be back tomorrow to up those downs for WWE Extreme Rules, because somebody gonna lose an eye.